We are back with another episode of RevivalCast, episode 38. We're going to be talking about RP and PvP. We don't have a dev blog this week, so we've got plenty of other stuff to cover, and we've got great guests, Zero MGA and Serb. You want to pronounce your name for us?
Yeah, it's Serbia. Just Serbia.
Serbo, you. Okay. So we don't have to think about the extra syllables.
No, or vowels.
Survive.
It's
Okay.
all fine.
Okay. Yeah, and we have Figment in chat. I was just saying we had started and had a little bit of technical difficulties, so just kind of starting this one back from scratch. But we lost Figment, our artist in Revival. He's gone on to bigger and better pastures, but we have him in chat right now, so that should be fun. And I'm really lamenting that I did not have him on RevivalCast on cam one last time before he disappeared, but I don't know what the PR is about with that. We might be able to have him on just anyway.
Yeah, sure. We'll have him on as just a guest, right?
Yeah, we will think about that. I will have to add him to try and add him onto our schedule. We have this huge schedule. We're already almost booked through mid-March. Homeboy is going to be on for us next week to give us a little bit of a view of what he thinks is in store for 2016 with Revival. But today we're going to talk about PvP. We had a great post, a quote from Snipe Hunter a couple of weeks ago that I posted. Let me see if I can still repost that. And it's long. And this is about symbology and how that relates to creating spells. And basically what happens is you take these symbols, you put them into what's called a thaumagram, and the variation of the symbols that are in that thaumagram will determine whether or not it casts Burning Hands or whether or not it casts Scorching Ray. And you could also add extra symbols if you wanted to put the spell on a scroll that a non-magic user could. So I was hoping to get feedback from everyone else on what they thought. And I think Sale Type is giving us his ideas about how that works.
Yes. So, however, we have received new information, so I will work that into the discussion here. So, back before we had crashed and had to restart, I was basically questioning whether the thaumagram system was procedural or whether it was essentially hard coded, in a way like, I don't know, the Binding of Isaac kind of item system is hard coded. But Snipe Hunter clarified for us in the downtime that the system is in fact a framework for procedural content, and so they don't know what every potential every actual combination of symbols will produce. But there are a couple rules, there are rules, that of course form that framework, and those rules do address certain broad balance requirements. So it is procedural to a certain degree. Don't know how absolutely crazy you can go with that, but it's a procedural system, which to me is really exciting because now I just got to find someone in game to like sit down and be like, "Did you try this combination? Did you try this combination? Did you try this combination?"
Yeah, and I just want to say really quick before I forget, because I want the guests to also weigh in, but it reminds me of, again, the alchemy system, especially for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, in that I was experimenting with, because I was in alpha or early beta or whatever, so we didn't know what combinations would make certain potions, and we would just take reagents and put them together and see what they would create. And then I would add that to the wiki, actually. But you could tell certain things like using a certain type of blossom would be fire, and then you just have to add it kind of like this thing with other stuff to make something either Burning Hands or Scorching Ray. What I like about this is that should mean that, because Snipe says Yeah, they don't in fact know every possible combination that's possible. Um, so that has me thinking that as they add new resources over time, we'll just have to, again, keep experimenting. It's like you don't have to create brand new spells as if they were hard coded. All you have to do is introduce a new resource, and then people will just have to start experimenting with those
Right.
combinations again to see what happens. Zero, Serb, what are your thoughts?
I think it's cool that it probably means a lot of spell names are going to be player invented.
Yeah.
People are going to be finding stuff and then naming them themselves and naming them after themselves.
I had not thought about that. I was thinking about that with weapons because we know that we could name weapons. Um, that will be very fascinating as we're discussing spells. I'm thinking about, how we used to do with EQ or WoW when we're trying to build our groups. And we want to know, do you know Burning Hands? No, I don't know Burning Hands. I know, you know, Heated Fingers. I don't, whatever, what's Burning Hands? Um, that could be very interesting.
I
Woo!
think it will
Burning
be.
Crotch
It,
just popped up. Hmm.
I thought, wait, are we discussing the STDs now?
That's what I was going to.
Or is that going to be the result? Burning hands will cure burning crotch. I don't know if I want to experience
There will be a lot of experimenting going on, I take it.
that. Maybe not the kind of experimenting I want to get involved in.
Yeah. So Snipe Hunter clarifies here that each symbol is basically an action in a macro, for instance, or a card in a Magic the Gathering deck. The Thaumagram in particular dictates which symbols you can use in two ways. First, which by being built for particular symbols. For example, a particular Thaumagram only works with the symbols of Hydra. And secondly, by dictating the topography within which you can place the symbols. So size, obstacles you have to place around, etc. And I suppose that constitutes, in a roundabout way, the balancing effect. Well, not a roundabout way, just in a subtle, hidden way, the balancing effects that they have to consider. Um, yeah.
I'll be kind of interested too, just to see what little variations there really are between some of the, I guess, reagents that get used, and well, and naturally, I'm excited to see kind of who are the first people that blow themselves up trying the new,
Right.
new things. Because we have an actual game where the failure can still present knowledge, and so yeah, like I said, it'll be interesting. I'm not as a member of Bleak Arc, I can't actually support Magic in any way. I hear so. Sorry.
I think I mentioned a week or so ago that I'm gonna have to think about a character that does blow themselves up and gets all the scarring
Right.
from those experiments. The experimental mage that, just walking down the street, you see the repercussions of that. That's a living history.
Yeah.
Well, you could
Absolutely.
just overtap a ley line, right? Like it would be a battery licking contest, right? Between you and your buddy about who can channel the most
And
ether from a ley line, right? And then one
that
of you
again,
emulates.
yeah, one of the things that I've been saying that I'm looking forward
MA.
to when we don't have everybody doing the exact same quest, right? There's no reason to, once everybody has done the quest line once or twice, you don't need to ask other people what they did because you already know what they did. You know what the druid did. Um, but that will be a cool thing to be saying, yeah, I got this scar from the Battle of Endor, and I got this scar from the Battle of Fall Creek. Um,
Right. Absolutely.
that could be a
I
really
got
cool
this one
thing.
because I
Strip.
fell.
Now the naked dancing will actually have meaning.
It didn't have meaning before. I always loved it.
Um, cool. Yeah, I'm really in love, I think, with this system. Well, I'm in love with a lot of the revival systems. So the other thing I really wanted to talk about was RPN PvP. We uh, uh, somewhat related to the kidnapping thread. kidnapping blog from last week. We had the week before that blog had a. I really enjoyed the conversation about sacrifices and the
Yeah.
possibility of kidnapping.
Mhm.
But I really liked Zero's input on his concern about how that would impact player autonomy. And I have some of those concerns about PvP in general. So I'd kind of like to hear from both Zero and Surbayu. Um, are they, because we have this thread, I think the name of the thread was, it's something like, how do we get our role players and PvPers to play together?
Yeah,
And I always think
PvPers
that's a
and role
fascinating.
players. How will it bring them together?
Yeah. So do you guys think of yourselves as more role play than PvP or equally so? How do you guys think in general about, or
Uh,
how have you thought of yourselves in
well,
general in
the
previous
the
games?
two are fundamentally connected for me. I can't RP without a PvP component, and that's not just because I like combat. Diggs, as mentioned before on the Bartle test, he scores a 0 on the killer. I score an 80%. I really love to explore. I really love to do these kind of things and really live a game. But to me, without conflict between players, there's just a missing element of it. And it doesn't have to be combat conflict. It can be any conflict, but it has to be there because as people, we just don't like other people sometimes for whatever reasons. And without that element, I end up thinking the experience is a little bit flat. And Revival thrills me because for the first time we really have an opportunity for non-combat PvP to exist and actually be meaningful for players. We've seen in other games a billion times people have stories between each other that they're rivals, they're enemies, their corporate interests are different, but there's very little way for them to actually play that out other than kind of the session RP that we talk about on the forums. Lots of talking, lots of emoting. I don't find it bad. It's just it's just kind of the unfortunate limitation of the games. There's no other option. In this, we have real opportunity for players who want to combat each other in a non-physical way to do so. Businesses can and will be able to try to topple each other. You can hire mercenaries to take that guy's trade caravan and cripple their business. You could spread rumors of them through pamphleteering or hire. Hell, I might go hire a bunch of prostitutes to go hang out at their house and ruin their relationships. Make the neighbors feel bad about them. There are options there that don't exist in other games, which makes PvP all the more exciting. But again, to me, without PvP of some kind, I don't have a real character.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely in the camp of everything I do in a game, ideally is role playing. So I don't really I've never really done the whole like specifically go out of my way to role play, but I've always said like if I can do it in the game, that's what my character is doing. Um, so I honestly don't know how I'm gonna get into PvP. I have no doubts that I will end up doing it in some way at some point. But however it happens in game, as long as it's coming out organically and isn't like forum plan GVG or something, then it'll most likely have some kind of role playing component to it.
Serb, do
And
you normally partake? Are you a big PvP combat person, or do you normally try to avoid PvP combat if you can? How does that work in previous games?
Uh, I haven't actually played that many games that have open world PvP, but the few that I have, I usually don't go out of my way to find it, but I'm not opposed to it.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess, yeah, I guess like if it encounters me, then I'm totally up for it. And so far, that's been my opinion going into Revival as well.
And Sale, I think of you as being more role player than PvP combat. I feel like you kind of avoid, maybe avoid combat is a little strong, but I kind of feel like you're not jumping into PvP combat very often.
It's funny because I I like PvP in other game spaces. Like I used to be a big Unreal Tournament player and stuff. Like I played a lot of UT, and I like shooters and junk. But when it comes to MMOs and the kind of scenario or environments that they tend to encompass, it's just not quite as interesting to me. And I'm also bad at it, so that's a little bit of a dissuasion to me. Like, get good. Why get good when I can just type a couple words to someone and be good at that? So I just, I stick a little more to the other stuff. But in Revival's case, the realms of competition are much larger and much more intricate than just gaming for world first, raid clears and arena ranking and stuff. So I'm quite pleased with the potential for all sorts of stuff to happen to me and to my character in the game. And I take a similar stance to Serbi, where if something happens, if I get involved in a conflict, right, then I accept it, right? I probably brought it upon myself in the first place. But it'll be there, and then I'll either have to fight and get good or not fight and get wrecked, and then I'll just deal with it appropriately. But yeah, I figure it's not a bad thing. It's just, generally speaking, it's not something I've exposed myself to. But that might change. Who knows? I might really like the combat or something, and then I'll just run around swinging an axe at everything.
I've definitely never said it, but
Out of my way, peasants.
I could always end up being one of the big time bandits on the server and have no idea of it yet. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, and there, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say there's kind of there's I guess I have to get this off my chest right off the bat because I meant to probably right away. The challenge, I think, is a lot of our peers, and not everyone obviously because there's all types, but a lot of our peers do have the feeling or equate PvPers with griefing and trolling. If you're a PvPer, you can't be an RPer. You're just a jerk. You're going to kill me, whatever. I ran into this a lot when I played Rift because I would not duel people, or I wouldn't fight people unless they would fight me, actually fight my character. They couldn't tell me that, oh, well, I stabbed you. And I was like, no, I play a PvPer. I play a warrior. If you want to say that, you come up and shank me. You need to come up and shank me. You can't just tell me you did it. And that would cause a lot of friction. But that is a reality, though. I mean, everything in Revival, the immersion level is cranked way up, and that's awesome. But that further drives that point home. And Diggs has said this many times, and I think it's spot on, is that no matter what someone's doing, they're playing a role. Even if they think they're not, they're playing a role.
Because it impacts the world.
Exactly. And so even the griefer, the naked tabletop dancer, whatever, it's up to the other players how they want to react to that. If you want to throw your immersion away, be like, oh, well, I can't be RPing because there's a guy dancing naked on a table. Clearly you've never been in a bar in your life. The show goes on, you still talk to people, you still act. And honestly, that should be a good topic of discussion. You should incorporate that willingly into your RP experience, not try to shy away from it. And that's my biggest fear, is that I don't think PvPers are going to have a hard time adapting to the RP for Revival. I honestly think the session RPers are going to have the hardest time.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of, I think, getting used to having people talk in ways that might seem out of character but really aren't, like people pulling in slang from the real world into the game world. And you know what, if they're saying it in Say Chat and it's part of the game world, that's totally fine in my opinion. It just becomes part of the game world.
Yeah, was saying everything that a player does is RP in Revival if it all goes right. I think that's what has a lot of us jazzed. But yeah, it's one thing that I'm constantly thinking about is how these terms that we're used to using don't really apply to this game design. And so we will say things like, or I will say things like, I'm used to saying, I don't like PvP. But it's not that I don't like player versus player conflict. I don't like player versus player combat the way it's been implemented in other games and the limitations on that. And my expectation is that even the combat I'm going to enjoy more in Revival. But more importantly is there's other ways for me to retaliate against combat. Um, Maybe instead of and I can do that when they're offline. So
Mhm.
somebody could attack me, and instead of me sitting there waiting for, like, I'm not in the mood to PvP content for combat right now.
Not going to stop them outside their house.
Yeah, so I will steal. I'll find out where they live and just rob them blind.
Right. Yeah.
Or I'll go do some pamphleteering and just use politics to assassinate their reputation. There's other things that I can do, and I actually probably enjoy that more than the combat, is using brains over brawn to figure out how to
Right.
um, ruin somebody's character. And really, that's the other thing for me, is for me it's not really player versus player, it's character versus
Right.
character. Um,
Absolutely.
and so, player versus player, I want to have camaraderie with all the players, and that we all enjoy playing with each other. Character versus character could be something very different. Um, but I actually don't like the idea of ruining another player's day, um, or a gameplay session. I was speaking this week, I think, with I'm gonna butcher this name too. I don't think I've pronounced it out loud before. Yalaya.
Yeah.
Elia sounds right to me.
I hope
Yalaya.
so, because
Yalaya. Um, I was speaking with him, and I have this character that popped up. We can supposedly, if we kill somebody, we have the potential to steal a page or a paragraph out of their journal. And it's really copying their journal. It doesn't disappear from their journal, but we essentially get to copy some notes from their journal. And I'm big on information, so I now have an alt that wants to go around just knifing people in the back so I can steal pieces of their journal. And even though normally I'm against combat and killing other players, well, heck yeah, I'll
right.
kill other players if I can get that little, and experiment with getting those pieces of knowledge just to see what I can get. But then about a month ago, I was thinking, um, well, hopefully I'll be able to resurrect them directly after. And that way I can kill them, get a piece of their journal, and then resurrect them, and they can continue on, the player can continue on with their play session, without being stuck. Oh man, now I have to go through Anamai's realm and find a way out and all this stuff. No, I'll bring them back. I just want the little piece of journal.
You know, I'm
I can
sure. I'm sure
resurrect them.
there's some way you can spin that into getting them to pay you to do it.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't think they can. I don't know that I don't know that that can transfer without us killing them. If I can do it without killing them, I'll do it
Well,
without
no,
killing them.
no. Here you go. So you do kill them. You take their journal. You resurrect them as planned. But then you say, "Well, hey, I found you passed out in the street. I resurrected you. Pay me money." And if they don't, you kill them
See,
again.
I don't care. I don't care about that. Uh, I'm not trying to inconvenience the
Yeah.
player any more than I have to.
But that
I
does
just
bring
want.
in that
I just want
sacrifice
that.
thread.
Yeah.
That was kind of the same concern
Right.
I had with the sacrifices thread was I love the idea of, being able to knock out a player and drag them, they go to the dreamland, they have a chance to fight back. I actually don't mind the mechanic of that. I think the adventure would be amazing. But the problem is that it's a massive inconvenience. Dude, I just wanted to go down to the store and, have my blade sharpened, and now I'm stuck in dreamland. I suck at, navigating mazes. It took me a week to get out of Anima's realm last time. There's a good chance that this will still be, no matter how you do it, a major inconvenience. And my concern with that on any removal player agency, and I think everyone tends to understand this, is just at what point does immersion become frustration, and just the kind of frustration
Yeah.
that makes you walk away.
So I think what both you and I were getting at in that thread, Zero. So on the sacrifices thread, uh, I think you and I were both totally cool with the idea of like, okay, so you kill somebody, they go to Animize Realm, whatever. You loot their corpse, they come back whenever they feel like it. You knock somebody out and pick up their body, and now if you want to. Some people were initially talking about this in being in a whole immersion thing, and my comment on it was, well, that's not very immersive for the player being knocked out if you have to
Absolutely.
be asleep for 10 hours or so while they drag your body to the middle of nowhere. So then the solution was just send them to the dream world. with the caveat being, well, you can try to get out of the dream world and come back to your body. So I think what we were saying is the problem that me and you had with that was when you die, when you're killed by somebody, you you have the ability to you've already lost. You failed through whatever method of gameplay got you killed, whether that was getting taken by surprise or losing in fair combat, or getting killed by a monster or whatever.
Or blowing yourself up with a spell. I mean, the point is that there was a kind of immediate action and consequence.
Right, and then once you're dead, you can safely log out, and nothing else bad is going to happen to you. You've already passed to the failure point, and now you're in the new. Now you no longer have an impending failure point that other people can do to you. When with the dream thing though, your failure point for at least for a lot of players is going to be they captured me. They are going to kill my character while I'm in the dream world. So I want to get back to my body and stop them from doing that, which means you can't really, at that point, log off until you get back to your body and have some way of fighting back. Otherwise, you log off and your failure point is now out of your control.
Well, yeah, I still don't quite understand that. So my understanding, or what I was advocating, is that it's the same kind of failure point. Somebody has a spell powerful enough to send you to the Dreamlands, and you have some way of, it's basically another form of losing combat. It's just instead of killing you, they've sent you to the Dreamlands instead. And I don't think it can be as simple as just somebody walking behind you and knocking you out with the
Definitely,
with
yeah.
the blackjack.
It
It's
would
got
be
to be.
some very complicated.
Yeah,
But
it's
it
got to
is
be something
extending
with,
that time, though. I try to steal from the wrong person, or I'm being a PvPer that likes combat PvP. I got into the wrong fight. These are actions that I maybe initiated myself, or maybe I'm defending myself because someone else initiated them. But I have a direct means of response to it. I can try to defend myself, or what have you. But if I die, that is the big failure point. Anima's Realm is its own adventure, just like the Dreamlands would be. But the difference to me is that once I'm dead, once my character is dead, I should say, I'm in control of the situation. I have the option of going through Anima's Realm now. I can wait a bit. I can rage, whatever. But if if my character is kidnapped and I'm shunted to a Dreamland, I'm almost obligated to work my way through it. And partly for me, that's a time constraint because I don't have time to sit and do that a lot of the times. But also just because there is no immediate. My character is now unconscious, but my character is alive and at the subject of someone else. I have no more direct control over my character, and that presents a pretty contentious zone of where that player agency is.
yeah, it's weird to me because we're talking about a body. So to me, the character is right. You're saying the character is dead,
Well, the
right.
character's
So
unconscious, but I have no
well,
choice
but
but to
no, what I'm
babysit
saying is,
that
but
character.
the only difference, it's the same player agency to me. It's just the difference is that you have a chance to save the body so that the body doesn't suffer whatever the physical penalties are of dying. I don't know if that comes with temporal damage or what. Um, but um, in terms of player agency, it's the same agency that you have when you're dead. We're just talking about control over a body.
Yeah,
Kind of.
I get what
I'm
you're
sorry, go
saying.
ahead, Stu.
Yeah, but I think the way we're thinking about it, and I think the way a lot of players will think about it, is you have like your death event, which is the so just assuming that most players in general will think of death as the big bad event. You have your death event, which is within like a couple minute span, a few seconds, and then you have your dream kidnapping adventure sacrifice event, which could be many hours. Um, so if you want to say air quotes win the encounter, when it comes to death, you have to commit to a few minutes, and when it comes to kidnapping adventure, you have to commit to however long that is.
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's the same amount of time. It's the same. I just
Well,
have
and
a
I
longer
guess it is.
window of
Yeah.
the possibility of gaining my body back.
Which and again, it's one of those things where, and this isn't criticism in any way, but it's what if I had all the time in the world, so to speak. Yeah, fine. I shut me to the Dreamlands. I'd love this, other adventure because it is an adventure, and I'm not opposed to it. But there are real time constraints that a lot of people have, and if again, it's kind of if my character dies, the body's there. It may get looted, it may get eaten, whatever. I kind of accept that because I understand that's the consequence of death. I have the new adventure of getting through Animus Realm, but that is now my time. I can choose to stop right then and there, log off, or do whatever, or I can keep going if I have the time. If I'm kidnapped, my body is still technically alive. The character's body is still alive in someone else's control, and I agree that you are just trying to get back to it. It's not that different from Animus Realm on that, but I'm now time locked into this. I either have to stay and do this. This is my character's body being carted off for sacrifice. I have
Or
to
you're
try to
gonna
save
lose
it, or what? If I log out, that's not a fair. That's almost a gimmick. Oh, I got kidnapped. I'm just going to quit. I mean, we wouldn't want that mechanic in there either. But now what happens? I've got to go take care of my kid. Dog's on fire. What have you?
I think I think
What is the
the
ramifications of that?
the thing I find most unappealing about the whole idea, I think, is so we know anytime you log out, our characters' bodies are gonna fade out of the world after a couple minutes, because otherwise it'll be like, uh, what's the game, Ark and all those where you log off and then all your crap is broken overnight and then you come back on and you just rebuild it every day. Um, but when you're dead and you log off an Animized Realm, you come back and you're still in the exact same spot you were. I mean, we don't know if the realms are going to like shift and change around you, but you log off.
When you say you, what do your body?
Him, the player.
Yeah, the
Your,
player. So
your
like,
spirit form in
you're
Enemy's
dead.
Realm.
Your
Okay.
spirit's in Animized Realm. You
Yeah.
log off there.
Yeah.
And you come back a day later and
But you're still
you
in
assume
Animus
you're in the same spot. You're still in
Yeah.
Animized Realm.
Yeah.
If you get hypothetical kidnap adventured in the dream world, you say, I don't feel like doing this, you log off. They finish their sacrifice in a few hours, you log back on the next day. Now you're no longer in the dream world, you're in Animized Realm now. So it's like the one scenario in the game where logging off doesn't really match what it does in the rest of the game, which is why I take issue with it. I think if the rest of the game, if our bodies were persistent in the rest of the game, I'd actually be totally on board with it. I think the biggest
Yeah,
problem
and that
I
wouldn't
have
bother me nearly as much. Yeah.
with it is that it doesn't match with how the rest of the game presents itself, keeping the players relatively safe when they log out.
And-
Yeah, I think was that Sale about? I couldn't see who was about to say something.
No, I'm just listening and thinking.
I was just going to say, and actually quote you, Diggs, on this was that a valid point that you brought up is that you don't have to. Your character may not actually die. We know people are going to find ways to troll and grief people somehow. That's part of the grand adventure. I can accept death to a certain degree. It happens. Sacrificed. Maybe I get a cool, tag from, for being sacrificed to a god. Who knows? But what if I log back into a cement box? What if I log back into a cage? And at that point, I sit there and wait till I starve to death. So there's certain, and again, like I said in the thread, I'm kind of hypocritical about this because I love the concept. I could see how it'd be really awesome, but at the same time, I hate it because I can see how it'd be really a removal of my control over a character that I'm vested in. So
Yeah.
it's kind of half a dozen on one hand, six on the other. I could go either way, and if it's in the game, I'm really not going to throw a huge fit over it.
Yeah, what I loved about going through and talking through all that, because I feel strongly sympathetic with your idea of losing player agency. That's why I've always thought that I hated PvP combat in other games, because the way I like to play PvP combat is I like to defend my city, and that's the way I am in real life too. If you come here,
Right.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm not gonna go fight in Russia. I'm not gonna go fight in Germany. But if somebody lands in the States,
Yeah,
Well,
not my
it's too
backyard, right?
close. Yeah, it's too close. So that's the way I like to do PvP combat in MMORPGs. Is if you attack my city, I will defend the city, and that's good for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. But then I'll be ready to do something else. Maybe I've got whatever I signed in thinking my play session was going to be about. Oh, today I'm going to go and I've got one bub left of XP. I want to do that before I leave. Um, and so now I've got an hour left. I've got to wait 30 minutes for the PvP flag to cool down. I don't want to just sit around doing nothing for 30 minutes. So I go out and start harvesting or whatever I'm doing to get that last bub of XP, minding my own business in my own land, and somebody comes up and kills me, and then I've got to spend more time getting more PvP, or they stole a weapon or armor, and then I've got to re-gear up, and that just steals my time.
Right.
And that's why I have thought of myself as a PvP combat hater for all these years. So I definitely get that. What I was thinking by the time we wrapped that up is about using extortion. So what if we could use drugs or poisons to attack other people's stats? And then that way that kind of
It's always about the drugs in Revival. What is this?
and that way that kind of takes that space of kidnapping so that you can still have the element of I have this. If you don't come to me for the poison, you have to pay up for the poison antidote. You have to pay up for the drug antidote. But it's not completely debilitating the character. And there are things that the character can do to try and overcome that. Maybe find an antidote themselves, or bring some buddies, I don't know, to attack you and force you to give them the antidote. I don't know, but
And it all does generate adventure, which is awesome. I mean, it's just where's that fine line where where you're hurting that adventure again for the sake of just frustration. And again, I don't know what that is. I love that there are even discussion points, so because again, we just don't have that in the game currently.
Mhm.
So I've been trying to think of like solutions to this, and I don't have one yet. But like,
I don't
what
think
if-
there's
well,
a
right.
real
I mean, solution
solution to
might
the
not
Dreamland
even.
thing because it was just a fun thing to contemplate, and I'm wondering why. It's still very interesting to me that you have a different attachment to the live body than you do to the live kidnapped body than you do to the already dead body. Because for me, it's pretty much the same
I guess
attachment
it's an
to the game.
expectation thing.
Yeah.
We've heard the tagline. There's Revival. There's no safe. There's no safe zones. Yes, we have zones that are safer, but
It's not
at any
hundred
point,
percent safe. Should be the term.
exactly. Yeah, and so because of that, there's a certain amount of expectation I go in. I will log in every day and be like, today is a good day to die. You know, that's fine. I don't think I'll ever say today is a good day to get kidnapped. I really want to get poisoned and sacrificed to someone's god. If it happens again, it might be fun. But but it is. It's just an expectation thing. Again, I understand that my actions can get me killed. I understand my actions can result in my character dying. But because we have Animus Realm, it's this whole journey. But it's still ultimately my journey. I might partake of it with friends, obviously, and things like that. But that moment of character's body death and transition to Animus Realm, that's still my journey. Being kidnapped and taken is someone else's journey, I guess, is the only way I could think to describe it. And again, like I say, I'm of two minds on it, so I'm kind of okay with it, I'm kind of not. I'll probably never reconcile this. So again, devs, if you want to
Yeah, I
put it in
don't
the
think.
game, I'm cool with
No,
it.
I don't. I think kidnapping is too problematic again because even if you get back, you could be stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think
Right.
we can realistically have kidnapping.
And just to clarify for myself, right? Like the fear is that because so far we don't have any like um, completely accessible way to actually, you know, disconnect from your body, right? That if someone kidnapped you, despite all your efforts to get out of the dreamlands, right, they could still just hold your body and you wouldn't be able to get into any other scenario than them having your body and knocking you out again or whatever, like routinely blackjacking you, right? Like, in other words, that even in spite of all of your work, you'd also still be stuck. Um, do I have that right or do I have it wrong? Because I'm just trying to kind of
I
envision
think I
things.
That
think
could
it
be part of
cannot
it.
be. I think it cannot be as simple as just hitting somebody over the head with the blackjack. It
Well,
has to be.
right,
It
but I
has to
mean,
be something that's along the same lines of combat, that it's possible for the character, the play, that it's possible for the player to um, to challenge and combat. So it has to be closer to um, the lines of a ritual spell casting or something like that.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because like on the one hand, I'm thinking, let's say that the actual Dreamlands, well, the actual knockout, right, takes or lasts for a duration of 3 real-time minutes, right? Like worst case scenario, right? But then if you do your darndest in the Dreamlands, right, to like fight through your knockout, you could maybe get out in a minute or even 30 seconds, right? And you could even implement some diminishing returns on top of that, where repeated knockouts are diminished, right, even up to potentially a point of immunity. Or you could put the reagent requirement of a knockout spell to be sacrificing your own spirit, right? I mean, but more so, um, I don't necessarily think limiting the time would actually change it, and in fact would make it worse. I mean, the only thing I could think of would be like, what if all characters had effectively a sort of spiritual cyanide pill, but then that actually raises a lot more potential, like a lot more problems and questions than it would answer by mechanically having it, because then it completely changes the entire lore that Omval would need to write, in a in a very very dangerous way, because he'd have to come up with like a bunch of eschatologies for like everything. So don't worry about that. I'm just gonna sit back and think
I
about it.
think the whole kidnapping thing goes down a really, really deep and scary hole of
Yeah.
stuff that can then be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And Oba said in there that the main issue for me is how long someone else can discreetly direct control or your experience against your own will. And that really is, I guess, where it ultimately boils down. Like I said, it's not my journey at that point, it's theirs. It's not my adventure. It's at the whims of them. And yes, going through the Dreamlands gives me a chance to fight back, but that's really just the illusion of still having control of my character. And I really don't at that point, at least to me. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all fair.
yeah, it's still just interesting to me because I keep hearing you say your character, but you still, if you're in the Dreamlands, you still have control of your character. You just don't necessarily
You
have control of the body.
Right, but your body is where your character will be, right?
Yeah.
And that can happen if you're in the Dreamlands anyway, right? You could uh, be in the Dreamlands. If you're in the Dreamlands, your body will be left for other people to attack
Yes,
and kill.
But I
yes,
think at that point it's your fault for not being protected enough.
it's right. It's either your negligence
And I
or
guess you could say the same thing about being negligent enough to get knocked out in the first place, but
Right.
Well,
Um,
sent to the Dreamlands, which is a little bit
yeah,
different. I don't consider knocked out to send you
right,
to the
right.
Dreamlands. So
That's assumed. Um,
yeah.
So, like, there's.
Well, we know that there's a chance on going to sleep to go into the Dreamlands anyway. So technically speaking, you could get screwed over by random chance, get stuck inside the Dreamlands because you don't know how to get out personally, like as a
Bro, I
player.
played Arcade. I get being screwed by random chance is a normal thing.
Mhm.
Right, but then you get stuck because you as a player are not facile enough to get out, and then your body's just chilling, wasting away in hometown, and then you're like, oh no, I need to get back. But I imagine those random encounters don't actually operate in quite that way. So I figure you'd technically be safe from that.
Yeah, but it is. It's a really interesting, kind of topic, and it's a really interesting aspect of gameplay because, again, like I said, I really can see how it'd be a neat experience. It's just
well, you have to
those
find
slippery
a way.
slopes.
I think you have to find, and that's why I found the discussion interesting, is because you have to find a way that it could be possible for that to be interesting, because
Right.
losing player agency is a huge, a huge problem.
Yeah.
And like immediately, the thing that you think of with kidnapping is being stuck with nothing to do while
Right.
you're incapacitated. And that's the huge thing. So you have to try to find a way to circumvent that. But again, I'm wondering if if drug use could be the thing that takes that place in a satisfactory way.
I think
Um,
extortion is good.
Yeah.
and
Agree with that.
I had not thought before about the potential of using drugs and or poisons to, um, like I said, we have to have a drug that causes erectile dysfunction so that people are not good at the sex game.
It's one of
Um,
those other plants in the sound, man. You got one that makes you go numb and one that makes you go really numb.
I swear this has never happened before.
um, so what RP experiences are you guys looking forward to? Zero was saying that he's a big role player. I mean, like role players. He was really wanting to be on this episode to talk about role playing specifically. So, um, what concepts are you thinking of that's really driving you to revival specifically?
Well, I think a lot of it is, despite having a really high killer score and apparently nothing in my Explorer score, it's actually, I love exploring in a game world. I love it. I mean, someone's generated a whole world different here. And I'm, Dick Millionaire jokes aside, I'm actually pretty, average income here. I can't go explore the world here. I sure as heck can explore someone else's world, though. And I love doing that with friends. I love doing that as a group adventure. That so much of the lore is hidden, that so much of the world is for you to discover, and it's not just a kind of catchphrase or gimmick. That's exciting. That means, because my favorite RP is the kind where it is dynamic, it evolves as you play. I've given up in a lot of games where I just stand around an RP for hours. It's fine. It has its own charm. But behind the keyboard, I'm standing around like jumping in place because I got to do something. And so to be able to RP as I go, killer, be perfect.
What about you, Serb?
I'm really not sure. I think I'm just excited to be able to get into a world where I'll actually be able to be a part of the world and not just be a special hero like everybody else. That really alone is the most exciting thing for me because everybody's going to be doing something different. What I'll be doing is probably going to be totally unique, whatever it is. I still have like 10 different ideas of what I might want to do, and I have no idea if any of them are going to be fun or not. So I think until we get into stage 3, that's all I can really say, and then probably I'll find something cool to do.
Yeah, I've got all of these alts, and it's mainly because there's so many different things that I want to explore: transgender characters, elderly characters, youthful characters. I like the idea of seeing what kinds of skill combinations might unlock unique master professions. I like the idea of this alt that I was talking about today that is primarily just focused on stealing. Snipe Hunter said that it would be possible to knock people out and potentially steal pieces of
Yeah, he said there were 2 ways.
of
One
the,
easier than the other, right?
but of seeing if I can get that character to not only be good at pickpocketing, but also be good at necromancy. So if I do end up killing them, I can immediately resurrect them. What kind of master profession might that unlock, if any? And or even I've mentioned before being the cook necromancer, and Cheshire wants to be the necro dancer. I'm
Wasn't
looking
someone going to
forward
be a
to.
lesbomancer too?
Oh, interesting. Yes,
I mean,
that's
now
right.
that you've
That's
mentioned
right.
it, it's
That's
going to be on the
right.
forums tomorrow morning.
Um, I think I do have an alt that might be a lesbomancer. That's interesting. Um,
That alt
but
list is getting a bit long. You might have to condense down a bit now.
yeah, I'm definitely going to want to be experimenting with all the different symbols in the thaumagram. just to see what the possibilities are. Um, I think it's going to be fascinating. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about today? I think we have about 7 more minutes, something like that.
Uh, Nothing myself. I thought it was a lot of fun. They were really fun topics on the forum, so I was really glad to do that here. Thanks for the invite because it was a lot of fun.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, we want to have more people from the forums on. And like I said, we're kind of booked in advance through March. Um, I think it's the end of February. We have Calidora coming on to talk about housing, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I'm glad that we have a schedule in advance so I can start thinking and planning in advance. It's been a lot of fun to have people booked early. And you guys just let me know when you want to be on again. I'll probably be asking you to be on again, but
Well, I see.
we
I'm
like
saying,
having people on. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
yeah, I think you're scheduled for sometime in February too, aren't you?
I'm scheduled on the 14th, so
Yeah.
be a sexy RevivalCast full of love.
There you go. Um, that has me thinking about holidays, actually. Maybe that'll be a good day to talk about holidays in Revival and the calendar. Hmm. Um, I don't know
Yeah,
if
and
we
that wouldn't be a
go
bad
ahead.
topic though, because Revival's calendar and like the seasons, that's a really odd topic, and it's a hard one to get your head around, or at least it is for me because I'm stupid. So I wouldn't mind seeing something on that topic.
I'll
Well, yeah,
explain it to you after the cast.
Yeah.
being from Alaska reminds me, I in a thread last week, I was talking about the calendar and saying Inuit have a 5 season
Yeah.
calendar instead of a 4 season calendar, and I would love to see some culture with a 5 season calendar. Um,
And it would make
poss-
sense if they developed calendars like that, just because if you have seasonal change like that, like we deal with a really long period of sun, so we have a really extended growing time despite having a physically or a date wise short month, and that's how that kind of calendar comes around.
mhm. Um, and it seemed like it was following patterns of when you're hunting certain animals. So I was even thinking of that for that could apply to you know other environments besides just Arctic environments. But Omwa says he saw that and took a note. So yeah,
So
that's kind
it's
of
the
cool.
danger with Homewood in anything. Never know what you're going to find as taking notes on it.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody was saying that the design was fixed and the devs aren't really listening to us, and I was like, no, they're listening. They've mentioned some specific stuff that they're thinking about changing just because, or adding just because, somebody brought something up. So,
Yeah, I know one of us, either in IRC or in the chat or in this chat right now, can absolutely take credit for the time frequency being pi to 1 instead of
mm,
2 to 1.
Yeah, someone I don't know.
mhm, mhm. So, yeah, okay. I think we can go ahead and wrap up. I'm trying. Anything else from you, Sale?
No, you said so. We next week we have Envoy coming on.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what the blog schedule is gonna look like for this week because we are due one, but
Hmm.
Kedron was ill, so I don't know if we're looking to get two this week or if we're just gonna get one. But potentially we could get some good material to talk about. Um, or we can just talk about 5 season years and all sorts of fun stuff. Monopolize our time
I
with time.
Yeah, I think that we can find topics to talk about. Well, I mean, next week is easy because we've got Ombwa, and I should probably think about starting a thread to see if we can get questions. I keep forgetting to do that. I'm gonna have to write a note to remind people to ask us questions in the chat. Um, but Yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys for showing up. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's really an open invitation. So just ping me if you guys ever want to be on, and I'll add you to the schedule. And yeah, have fun, guys. Have a great week.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
See you in IRC or on the forums.
Yep.